Hello, and welcome to Detailing and Communicating Architecture, Spring 2021. The studio focuses on four important aspects of dealing with questions of tectonics in architecture, and more specifically, the question of building language. Firstly, building up the ability to visualize structural force. Secondly, building up the ability to apply the form of materials onto the force diagram. Thirdly, the ability to construct an expressive detail for space. And lastly, the ability to draw in a way that can be referred to as a construction drawing as well as communicate the qualities of spaces.
Modifying details. For the first exercise, each student was provided with an image or video of a detail which was either a latch, lower, door, or hinge as a reference. The aim was to replace 60 to 70% of the material with an option to change the input force. As students turned to the workshop, they started working with materials such as bamboo, timber, steel, and their products. A thorough market study took place during this process to discover parts which were more readily available instead of making them from scratch. After 3.5 weeks, the models were polished, painted, and ready to be displayed. At the same time, students started producing a dimension kit of parts as well as assembly drawings for each component and the whole system, which they had used as reference during the workshop exercise. These drawings not only helped in making of the components but also aided in testing whether the visualized sequence of assembly was correct or not. In the end, mechanism visualizations, bill of quantities, and estimation of the total cost of the respective systems were made.
Modeling openings. For this task, the students were provided with a hypothetical situation wherein they had to design an opening which was an interface between the street and a Hyperloop experimental facility set up by Suno India in collaboration with Tesla. The process started with each student deciding the manner in which they wanted to open up to the street. After this, each student began their modeling by attempting to stabilize a sheet of paper proportionate to the leaf of the door, assuming it to open as decided. Some of the prerequisites of the exercise included strict use of pin joints, threads to stabilize and operate the system, as well as a 30% limit on the ratio of stabilizing paper to the unstable sheet. Students had to use some of the expressions from exercise 1 in their openings. The final task for this exercise was to translate these paper models into actual materials. Continuity of materials from exercise 1 was expected. Students drafted their respective drawings under the guidance of Yatin Bhai, one of the carpenters at the CEPT workshop. His insight was vital in understanding the pragmatism one needs when imagining construction as well as forming a sequence of construction.
The next exercise was modeling cantilevers. Students had to choose the type of staircase they shall design from the three situations: cantilevered, suspended, or supported by a stringer. After figuring out their respective support condition, each student had to stabilize a paper strip of less than 1 mm thickness, proportionate to the size of the thread. The stabilization was to be done using paper strip, pins, and thread, hence allowing students to articulate the relationship between flexible and rigid materials to derive a stable relationship of components, parts, and elements. These were then detailed out and translated into a MDF model for the mid-semester review. After adding materiality based off market available components, detailed drawings were made. The exercise helped the students generate a structural system within the given boundary conditions of span and support, which was a prequel to the next exercise.
Modeling spans. The next exercise started with each student being provided with a unique symbol consisting of dots and lines. Using this symbol as a starting point, the students had to develop modules for a spanning system that revealed the symbol when cut in section. The modules were developed such that they would multiply to form a stable system. This was achieved through paper, straws, and threads initially and was later converted into MDF models. These modeling experiments were carried out on a scale of 1:10 for a span of 11 meters. Engaging with these models helped one understand the different forces of compression and tension that work together in a system and analyze and test the behavior of the spanning system as a whole. Based on the behavior of different components of the system, the students articulated and detailed the system using bamboo, timber, and steel as the key materials. While doing so, one had to keep in mind the previous details and attempt to articulate following the building language that had been developed so far. In the end, a set of detailed drawings and models at 1 is to 10 and 1 is to 5 scales reflecting actual materials were produced.
CEPT stock. The last stage of the studio involved the introduction of an architectural project, which was the artisan's workshop to be built in Ahmedabad. The students were to design the building within the constraints set by the spanning system and other details that had been developed. The site was a longitudinal piece of land opposite to the CEPT University campus that had a main road on the south side and a secondary lane on the east. To develop a bearing system for the building, exploration in materials such as rammed earth, CSEB, and wattle and daub was done. The end goal of this exercise was to develop a coherent architectural language wherein the details and space contributed to one another to create a greater architectural experience. In some cases, the details were modified to adapt with the larger building language and program. Finally, a set of working drawings was produced by integrating the details designed across the semester.
During the course of the semester, site visits, like an ongoing construction of a residential project, was undertaken, which helped in understanding the construction of toilets and how the drawings provided by the architect and sequence of construction executed on site come together. A representation workshop was organized by Lisa John and Chandni Patel after the production of drawings to make them more communicable by discussing rendering styles, methods of incorporating depth and light in a space, and overall composition for the final presentation. Thank you and have a good day.